basics like computer mechanics and things that you need to fix to just get better that you wouldn't normally know that's not game related. This one is going to be way more game related, especially with tactics, strategies, how to counter, etc. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, looking for someone.
Sure.
Okay.
So if you missed the last one, there are specific mouse settings you should have. There are in-game settings you should probably optimize to improve your gameplay. But what do you do after now you got all your ducks in a row, now you're ready to play, right? So Overwatch is a team game, and not a lot of people get that. You see a lot of solo play, insta-locking, you know, all this good stuff that comes with that, trolling, flaming, leaving voice chat. Anyway, so with Overwatch, there are 3 roles, right? So everyone knows there's DPS, tanks, and supports. Before, supports weren't classified as healers, they were supports, but now they're healers. Supports heal. So with Overwatch, you basically have 3 different things working together, balancing the other, and that's what's going to lead to success. Heals is helping, deeps is helping, tanks is helping, you know what I mean? So it's this trifecta.
It's a team game.
It's a team game. There's 3 different things working together simultaneously. That's where the fun comes in, is when you can actually execute those team plays cohesively, you know, cleanly. And that's where I find the fun in the game, at least, to pull off those clutch plays and get as close to playing in the Overwatch League as we can possibly get, right? So what a lot of people don't understand is what their role is actually supposed to do. Because if you know what your role is supposed to do, then you're going to have a better idea of where you should be, what you should be looking at, what you should be paying attention to, and what you should be calling out. So, tanks. They primarily are damage mitigation, and they're going to be space creating. So the tank is going to be holding up that shield. It's very vital that you have damage mitigation. And people say you don't need an anchor tank.
What's mitigation mean?
Mitigation. So they're gonna stop the damage from ever hitting. They're just gonna stop the damage. It doesn't need to be healed. It's gonna be just completely nullified, right?
Trash damage.
It's gonna be trash damage. While at the same time they're making space. They're getting you towards the objective. Either you're pushing the payload towards the point, or you're trying to get on the point, but you're getting on the objective. And the tanks are going to be the force that is pushing you forward.
You move the team. If the tanks don't move forward, and there are a bunch of words I can't say, then you're not going to get anywhere. Your team's going to hold still. It's like having a Reinhardt that's too afraid to engage. You're not going to move forward towards the objective. Yeah.
And you have people in voice chat asking if their W key is broken.
Yes.
Right, or the tanks may not understand their role well enough, and they say, well, why didn't you didn't get enough kills, DPS, so that we could get in there? Well, maybe that's not quite right. Really, the tanks should be primarily the ones making that space towards the objective, or away from threats, that kind of thing. Tuttle!
Tuttle! Hi guys, this is our top 500 Widowmaker main.
So, to catch you up, we're just explaining what each role on a team does, and kind of how Overwatch functions on a basic level. So, I've heard, so moving on from tanks, so standing behind the tanks, you can bank that it's going to be the healers, the supports. Now, the healers basically have a lot of utility to their kit, so they're there to basically heal the damage, so repair any damage done. At the same time, they do mitigate damage in their own way, or fix boo-boos if you just want to simplify it. But basically, they've got 2 plates, well, 5 plates if you're the single healer, on sticks that they're balancing throughout the whole game. And so one starts to tilt, and they gotta, you know, pick it up, and they basically are balancing all these different plates. It's the, your ally's health that you have to pay attention to. You have to keep looking at the plates. Or if you're not looking at the plates, you have to look where you're walking. So supports have to have this kind of broad sight over everything that's happening on the battlefield at one time, because they need to know where their ults are, where your ults are, and when damage is coming in. And as you play more as a support, you'll be able to predict damage a little better and kind of learn how each support fits into a team, and how they mitigate, well, not mitigate damage, how they repair damage, and also offer utility with their ultimates. Toto, you want to talk about DPS?
I just click heads.
They click heads.
You
That's what
just click
DPS
heads.
is. They frag. They click heads.
Yeah, that's literally all DPS does. And if you're not clicking heads, you're bad.
Right.
And you need to play a tank, like me.
So as tanks are pushing forward or trying to keep the other tanks from pushing forward, right? They're holding the space, they're mitigating damage. At the same time, your DPS is trying to frag, trying to click those heads, and your healers are trying to balance those plates all at once. And everything's going on simultaneously. And ideally, you can maintain that in a perfect world. And that's never gonna happen, and they're gonna click heads better, or, there's just so many different variables in Overwatch that can go wrong. So, what's best is that you are in position of the role of the character that you're playing in with your team. Now, there are different teams to where the rules get blurry as you change teams. Now, this perfect team that I'm describing of everyone's working together and everything's going super well, you're never going to see it, but what's important is that you know with what team you're working with, where you fit in. There are different team compositions. You want to go into the team comps?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's different team compositions you can run, and these are just basic teams that pretty much synergize all the time. Now, you need to have some idea of when to use them and when not to use them, but what's referred to as death ball is typically a team that is tight-knit, kind of like the team I was describing, moving together, staying together, and just killing things as they roll around together slowly. Another team comp that was played for season on season.
It's dive. It's dive. If you don't know what dive is, let me tell you. Okay, so dive is my favorite team composition because I had to learn how to play Winston, and now I'm a good Winston. I'm crazy. I'm nuts. Anyway, so dive basically consists of a very mobile hero pool because a lot of heroes can't move that fast. So you need to be able to move fast and jump onto people. Dive, you group up together and you pick someone off one by one. So you can literally just dive a Zenyatta with a Winston, a Diva, a Mercy, and a Genji, and that Zenyatta's gone. And then if you can reach their Mercy if they have one, they're dead too. And then you just pick people off one by one, jumping around. And it's so much fun. I love dive.
So what dive does well is it's a high mobility team composition. So everyone's got a movement ability of some kind. Winston can, leap. Diva's got her rockets. Mercy can Guardian Angel. Genji's, got his dash, whatever. Tracer obviously blinks. Lucio's riding walls all over the place. But what they do well is they can get to high ground, and they can all simultaneously use those movement abilities to jump on that target that they've designated. In order to successfully pull it off, you need to say and have coordination when you do it. We're going on this person, diving, now. And if you pull it off, it works really well. In fact, it worked so well, it was played for 7 seasons. Until they came out with some counter picks that kind of disrupt that team play style. With Deathball, what they do well is slow encroach. The overwhelming force that just slowly rolls over you. And that one's a little harder to pull off in general. But that one, it doesn't have access to the high ground. It can't, go up top where depending on what map you are, it doesn't have that versatility of mobility. So another, well, hold on. So the three basic ones are death ball, dive, and then defense, the defensive one. Bunker comp.
I call it anti-dive.
I call it bunker.
Oh.
Well, whatever you want to call it.
I've heard bunker.
Bunker. I've heard bunker. So that's Orisa Hog is the core of that, and what they do well is Orisa puts her barrier down and basically gets another barrier shortly after, and Hog can kind of control that space around that barrier. It's really good on very specific maps right now, but it used to be used a lot.
Usually point capture.
Yeah, usually holding points. First point Nubani, you can still play it. I don't know about Horizon. Horizon got changed and it's kind of wonky right now.
No, you can use bunker. That's the only thing you can do on point A in Horizon now is bunker. You can't really defend with anything else.
Really, it just feels like Benny Hill because no one knows where to go anymore. So everyone's just running around. It's quick play style. But what that team comp does is really hold down and lock down that area that they're controlling. Those tanks really control that space, and they make sure no one's coming in or getting too close, really. And if they do get too close, ideally the team will pick them. So that's also called a pick comp, where you're just looking for one pick every fight, a key pick. So catching the Mercy out or whatever it is, whoever it is you can get, but just obliterating them. Really good defensive comp. Now that Brigida and soon to be Wrecking Ball will enter the meta, it's going to change team comps a lot. Brigida, we all know, really made everyone frustrated to begin with. Her shield bash was super fast, still is. Short cooldown, and she would just basically one-shot either of the dive comp carries. Dive was nullified, pretty much except on like a couple points on like 3 maps. Dive was like, you really had to have that cohesion, that team cohesion, where the plates are spinning and the heads are getting clicked and the space is being created and controlled all simultaneously, which is hard to pull off. And Brigida just made it even harder to pull off.
I think Nubani is one of the only maps you can still run dive if you're careful, if you're against Brigida.
Second point, Blizzworld also. But Brigitte, her ultimate luckily got nerfed, provides so much armor that Winston's damage was nullified. It's really hard to pick through it as Tracer and Genji. Like you really have to focus one person, and so there really can't be any split damage with that comp. So it's kind of hard to pull off right now. With Wrecking Ball coming into the meta, we're looking at a few new carries entering the meta. Doomfist has just been more and more prevalent as time has gone on. I'm thinking that there's going to be a triple tank dive disruption meta where you have Winston, D.Va, Wrecking Ball, Doomfist, and then Mercy probably, maybe Moira, Lucio. We'll kind of see how things shake out depending on where some of these changes fall. But also Symmetra coming into the meta really enables Doomfist in a lot of ways. But there's maybe going to be a couple new comps, like a disruption comp, where it's just, Rhymes are just going to get tossed around, like absolutely, like knocked around by Wrecking Ball, Doomfists, D.Va Boops. You know, it's going to be painful to be Ryan, I think, in a little while. And Brigitte's are going to also be feeling the pain too.
The Ryan Zarya comp's gonna get smothered.
Yeah, it's just going to get, you're just going to get knocked out of position. That tight death ball is just going to get booped around and everyone's going to get knocked out of position. And that's going to be easy to capitalize off of when...
We should backtrack a little bit and go into pairings and who goes with them.
Okay, you want to do that?
So a really important basic thing that you need to know, we mentioned a little bit at our last panel, but you need to know who goes with who. Different characters really synergize with other characters, especially your tanks. So Arisa goes with Roadhog for very stationary things because they're very low mobility. They're really good at bunker and they're good at holding things down. Then you have Zarya and Reinhardt who are perfect together, but they're only good on flat surfaces. You can't do very vertical maps with them because they're just too slow and bulky. They're good for pushing some maps, not Gibraltar, maybe, what's a good one for them?
Kings Row.
Kings Row is their best map. It's Zarya's best map for sure.
But
And
that's because Ryan doesn't have to get up to those high grounds. All those high places are really kind of off and kind of at weird angles.
there's not a lot of them too.
Yeah, there's
They're
not a lot.
It's not like high ground you put the whole team on. It's high ground for a widow. And then you have your dive tanks, which have very high mobility, which is your Winston and Diva. They synchronize together pretty much because of their mobility. But if just those two alone dive onto a like 300 HP character, they're wiped easily. So that's extremely important for your team comps. Sometimes it's even better to have those tanks just together. Even if somebody doesn't really know how to play one of them, it's better to have the character with the synchronizing character than it is to know how to use them. Sometimes it just serves you better that way.
They just have an innate synergy. There's just an innate synergy to the characters. You really don't need to coordinate that much between the two, except, hey, dive on Zenyatta, and then everyone just does their own thing at that, from that point on, once that dive is initiated, that you don't need to kind of really pay attention to the other to know where they are because they're right next to you. But you can off balance it by not having those synergetic picks. So and I've seen this lately as in running Winston as an off tank with Rhine is atrociously terrible unless you know how to play it. Now, if Winston dives in, Rhine's probably not going to charge in. It would just be reckless and kind of wild, and it leaves your whole team exposed in the back. Their damage combined is not very much. It's pretty low. Winston doesn't really enable Ryan to do anything. He doesn't really give Ryan any extra benefit. While Zarya can bubble him so he can drop his barrier and start swinging his hammer, or whatever. But when Winston dives ahead, Ryan can't follow it. Now Winston's ahead of the team and no one's there with Winston. And I don't know why people are running this, and Platt loves this right now. But those synergies just, they don't work out together. And if you have a team that's half dive and half deathfall, half the team dives, and then it's a 3v6 for that 5 or 6 seconds before the engagement, and it just, it all, so much can go wrong. So much can go wrong. I'm not saying that you can't do it, because, you can pull off just stupid comps in competitive play. You can have 4 DPS and 1 healer and 1 tank, and it works sometimes, but if you really want to lower your chances of losing, you're better off just picking those synergetic picks to your team. So having a hero pool that can complement, or at least serve a spot in each of those team compositions, you're going to be better off in the long run, because you can say, oh no, I could play Hanzo here, or oh, I could play Winston here, or yeah, I could play Zen. And you can switch off whatever you are to kind of help the team. Because how many games do 5 people insta-lock DPS, and then what the community would have you think are the weak-willed switch to tank and heals, and only the strong are the DPS. There's no shame in it. I like to play, honestly, that versatility role where I can pick up anything that the team is lacking. But by having those synergies in place, you don't need to coordinate, extra. With a Winston and Ryan, you need to coordinate extra. You really got to know how to play with a Ryan as Winston. It's so weird and it's wonky, and it doesn't help either of them to do that. So, with team comps, try to have something for every comp that you can play. That's
The same thing goes with supports. So different supports have different mobility, and like he said with They're weaklings. Zenyatta, you can probably get more damage. I know somebody who soloed an account as Zenyatta and got to Grandmasters, just one-tricking Zenyatta, and carrying their teams as a DPS player and a support, because that's realistically what Zenyatta is, except for when you ult. The same thing goes with Zarya. You can do more damage than your DPS if you're a good Zarya. That doesn't matter. There's really good things you can get out of these characters. They're not all the same. The DPS aren't the only DPS, really. But anyway, back to your supports. You need different supports with different groups. So while you have your main tanks that are doing, you know which characters you can go on or not. You might not want to play Mercy if your team doesn't have a lot of mobility, because you're going to get picked right off the bat. If your team is really tight, you can't get out, you can't escape unless you have a Widowmaker or a Pharah or somebody who can just get away so you can just fly to them. Most team compositions are going to run a Mercy with a Zenyatta because they're too OP right now.
Why?
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 Because
Yeah, why
Mercy's
Mercy's in?
high mobility and Zenyatta's ultimate are what make them special little babies, okay? They're special.
Damage increase too.
Oh yeah, and the damage increase for Zenyatta's orb. I'm sorry, but Anna's still not in. She's not cool right now. She was cool.
I'm holding out though, I'm holding my breath.
We're waiting for Anna to be cool again. Stop playing Anna! Do not play Anna in Diamond. You're a thrower. I'm sorry, I'm mad about it. I'm a little salty. Anna has no mobility and her damage output's too slow. Okay, sorry.
So Mercy and Zen kind of fill in the gap of where the other leads off. Mercy's always holding her beam. She never gets to pull out that blaster, probably. Unless you got that Battle Mercy in you.
Go for the Widow.
You go for the Widow when you ult. But Zenyatta is that extra DPS. Also, he is increasing damage on a specific target, as opposed to Mercy, who is damage boosting, one person. So they kind of complement where they meet in the way that if that damage boosted ally is attacking that orbed target, there's a significant increase in damage that kind of powers through the burst heals that exist right now with Moira and Mercy and Brigitte, huge heal. You can frag people faster than they can be healed, and that's kind of why people play that. Also, you can burn tanks down a lot faster, but if your Zen is marking the correct priority target, you can really mow through the enemy team if you land those shots, if you can click those heads.
What percentage is Zen's damage?
Uh,
Isn't it, I think it's 15%.
it's like 30% for him, and then 15. Don't quote me. Overwatch Wiki, that's a thing. But they synergize in the way that Mercy's ult is better for aggressive moves, typically. You can use it defensively to get her out of a fight when you know there's a grab and that Zarya is looking right at you, trying to catch the grab. You can preemptively get out of there. But you want to typically use Zenyatta's ult as a defensive ult and Mercy's as an offensive ult. Because she can fork the damage boost, is why. So Moira and Lucio is another combo of healers that is being run right now. What that does is it enables a multi-tank meta. So if you've seen triple tank being run,
Or quad tank.
or quad tank, not as much.
Shanghai Dragons does it, and they're pretty good at it.
It was super good, and then Brigitte
You
came out
laugh.
and they said
Shanghai.
Hey, listen though, that's their best move, okay?
Yeah.
How many games have they won with it?
They tried it on Iconball. They
Trick
messed up
question.
one time.
Trick question. I'm holding my breath till they win one.
Guri carried.
But there's a couple things you can do, and you can kind of determine if it's right for the team. Maybe you can be the final piece into these team compositions just by switching your character. But Moira and Lucio are those stick together death ball healers that enable multi-tank, or you can even have a Brigitte in there. I've been seeing 3 tanks, 3 healers. Yep, that's a thing. So
That destroys the Ryan Zarya meta.
as long as you run it kind of like dive, and you just try to swarm over them really fast and take out the healers as fast as you can, pretty much, or get key picks. But if your team's not coordinated, that's going to be really, really hard to pull off. I've tried to do it in pubs. But that kind of team composition, if you have a Tracer, they're not going to be getting healed by the Moira or the Lucio probably, because Tracer's flank, they're always out there. There's really no good way to heal them. I have been seeing Ana run. It has worked. It has also failed miserably at times, but because of the Hanzo Graviton right now, Zenyatta's kind of in an iffy place where it's almost a gamble to use your Transcendence because you don't know if they're going to power through it or not.
What do you mean by that?
So right now, everyone probably, if you're playing actively, knows the Graviton plus Hanzo ult. Easy peasy, right? All the Mercy needs to do is damage boost that Hanzo that just ulted that Graviton, and it's going to power through a Transcendence.
Until the next patch goes live.
We'll see what they do. They're definitely looking at changing what ults can be damage boosted and which ones can't. I disagree with what they're doing, but honestly, as a Zen main, it is iffy. It's like, it's a gamble if this ult's going to save the team or not. Should we just wipe and reset and then have trance for the next fight, or, are we going to be able to power through it? But because of where the damage is right now, it's like on this little teetering edge where it's just a little extra damage will power through the trance or not. It doesn't feel good as Zen. So playing Ana instead is more, it's better for your for your Graviton combo because you can guarantee a grenade, just completely nullifying a Transcendence. It's iffy though because Ana always has to look forward and she kind of has to be right behind her tanks right now. And if you don't have a Zen who can just flip out healing and not have to look at it anymore kind of a thing, and Mercy can be, pocketing someone, Ana has to be turning around. And when Ana has her back to the fight, that's yeesh. But her cooldowns are too long, her healing is too slow, and her reload takes forever. So Ana's healing is iffy. And if you miss that shot, someone dies.
What do you mean? But Ana just got buffed.
If you miss that shot, I'll repeat it. If you miss one shot, that key shot, someone dies. And Zenyatta just has an auto-homing orb, and Mercy's beam tethers to someone, and they can do flips and circles around it.
You just turned Mercy on toggle, by the way, if you didn't know that.
So be careful if you play Ana, anyway.
Anyway.
Brigitte, really, right now, I'm seeing her only played in the triple heals at the diamond level, and that's because her healing is garbage if you're not constantly brawling.
Yeah.
So
I've been seeing her more as like I've been using her more as a DPS than active healer. It's like I can also heal, but I'm mostly here to do damage.
right, I like her in the off tank position, honestly, because she can control fights a lot easier. But her weak spot is if you're not brawling, you're not healing, you're not doing damage.
The one nice thing about her is it will allow you to have a very mobile DPS if you do have one, especially a Widow or a Genji, and then you can just throw those heals and let them go rough it out or whatever.
Anyway.
That's the one thing.
So, but if you're iffy on whether or not you're going to get that brawl that you're looking for as Brigitte, pick up the extra healer. It's easy, it's nice, but it's guaranteed. Also, it counters the Hanzo maybe. Anyway, a lot of it's up to your discretion though. If you're in these games, sometimes pushing for a cohesive team composition and playing the professional way or the right way may lead to your doom because, let's be honest, how many people can actually pull it off? Very few people know their roles well enough. Yeah.
People in South Korea can pull it off, probably.
Yeah, and you go play pub games over there and tell me how that is. And tell me diamond's not their gold.
But that's the risk taken, Pugland, as my guild leader calls it. You might get a good group. You might get a bunch of...
Right. And
That's
so
solo queue.
so much is up to your own discretion. Honestly, you're better off playing those core 5 heroes that are your mains than you are probably making that rock, paper, scissors switch because you need the grab because you got the Hanzo and you're missing the grab. So I don't play Zarya, but I'll play Zarya. it's up to your discretion, because sometimes that does work, and if you can pull it off, you can pull it off. But sometimes you may be better off on your main.
Play Widow, Hanzo, McPhee.
That's it. That's the only DPS you need. And get good at them.
See, like, I'm a Reinhardt and repeated main. Like, I play casual, like, I save my rank for Rocket League, so.
So anyway, what he meant is when you play those characters, you can pair them up with other heroes. So McCree's really good with the Reinhardt because you have that shield to protect him the whole time. Hanzo's amazing for that grab. It's you can wipe a whole team like nothing. That's all you have to plan on. Just have a good Zarya and a good Hanzo, and you're gonna have a team wipe every time. Who was the other one? Widow. Widow, you can just head pick people because no one's gonna run dive because they're scared of Brigitte.
Yep. True fact. So, with team composition, it's probably a good idea to try to complement the team. 5 DPS is probably not going to push the payload. And having no shield is going to be terrible. You're going to get fragged. They're going to be able to click your heads wherever you are. So having the plates, the head clicking, and the shield up, it's built into the game. It's there. It's easy to use. There's synergies out there that are just in place. It's a safe bet.
Use them.
Use them. Good news. You don't have to, completely be subjected to the random queue anymore with the group finder or the group maker. So now you can actually queue with the team. You can assign roles. You can have it be locked in roles. You can have it be open roles. I've had the most fun playing quick play that I have had ever because I have teams that actually want to play. And I can actually practice being in the right position because everyone else is trying to be in the right position with their roles, typically. It's not the chaos that quick play used to be. And I've actually liked it in ranked. I've been way more okay with losses, eating that SR loss. I don't feel as disappointed because I knew that I was in position or that I was actually, in the spot that I needed to be to actually practice the character. Because so many times I play Zenyatta right, and I'm just like, heal me, Mercy, and Mercy's just, she's out there, she's doing her own thing, and she's not playing it right. And then I'm left in the back, and no one helps peel for the healers or the back line, and it's just utter chaos. People aren't in voice chat. But anyway, Group Finder's awesome. If you haven't used it yet,
I've had the most fun with competitive with the group finder because it feels like you have so much communication with your whole little temporary team that it's just enough to get you through the game where you're like, well, it's okay that we lost. We figured out why we did. We know you messed up with this, but I messed up with this. And it actually makes it a lot more fun even though you lose. And sometimes you actually meet some really interesting people and you're like, well, the six stack as a whole wasn't great, but I know this guy was amazing, as an off tank. He was amazing, and then you might, add him and then team up with him later on.
it's great for networking. It's great for networking, honestly. And it's a good idea to start kicking solo queue habits. Those habits of, I don't need voice chat, I'll never even enter it. I mean, give it a chance. If it's too much, bail, The community's interesting in that way. It can be totally toxic as it goes, or it can actually be awesome and people are actually doing the right thing, calling the shots that they need to. Your primary tanks should be calling the positioning shots, and your healers should be calling the priority targets. Be careful when you're challenging calls because it can ruin every fight ever.
Hey, who are shot callers?
Shot callers are the healers, primarily. And then tanks are like the positioning. So
Unless they're front line. Not Reinhardt. Reinhardt doesn't shot call. Don't shot call.
The tanks can call, but it's simple things like push now.
Zarya's a shot
Or like
caller.
I'm going in. Well, you can kind of anyway. The tanks are the ones calling the positioning. It can be whatever you make it be. But the healer should be calling priority targets, and the DPS are throwing in, I've got, someone low or someone's out of position and they spot them, right? You know, the healer should see that too, but the DPS, it's their responsibility to go click that head. And so, shot calling is honestly going to help you too, because there's too much information that, you know, there's too much information for one person to gather alone. You would have never known that Genji was flanking if your Genji didn't see him or whatever, you know what I mean? So,
Which characters are usually the shot callers on the
He-
team, specifically?
if it comes down to it, healers. Because the healers are sitting back from a fight. The tanks have their face against that other tank, so they're just bashing their head on that other tank. But the healers are sitting back looking at their whole team, and because they're sitting back, there's probably not someone behind them, odds are. So they can see the whole fight in front of them, and they can watch it develop. No, the healers don't always have the best perspective. You know, the map geometry makes things funny, and it adds a lot of variability to the game. So, you can challenge shots. You can't say, no, go now, because there is an opening, but Mercy's around the corner and is saying, heal back, someone died, I got a res. Healers should be calling shots primarily because they can see everything that's going on properly. Now, if you got a Widow, maybe, depending on how much they're zoomed in. Honestly, it just takes practice. It takes practice in your role. Call the shots that you can call. And if you don't know, don't call the shots, kind of a thing. You know,
Don't flood the chat.
don't flood the chat. Also, make it clear and concise communications. I really only say orb someone. I'm playing Zen. I'm like orb someone. You know, Genji 1, whatever. Orb Genji, orb Mercy.
Or at the start of a team fight, as a tank, I'll be calling out if, you know, Hog no hook, or Risa no orb, or basic things like that, or Hog no vape, and then you know that's when you pounce on the Roadhog and he's just white.
Zarya no personal.
Right.
Zarya no self.
No
That's
bubble.
no bubble. Right, no bubbles. Yeah.
Also, if the healers make calls, respect your healers.
Respect your
Respect your
healers!
healers.
Keep you alive.
Who heals the healers,
This
you
healer
know?
sucks. Well, I'm not gonna heal you. I'm gonna watch you die.
I,
I've had that happen.
you know what? I have mixed feelings because, you know, I don't want to heal those trolls, those flamers that I had to mute, and I know they're just sitting there raging at me as I carry them on my plate. But I do it sometimes, and sometimes they make plays. Sometimes we win games, and I get mad about it. But, you know, respect the shot caller. If your shot caller says disengage, disengage. Assume that's what the team's doing, because having any coordination as a team is going to be better than quick play chaos. You're going to be able to accomplish objectives and move the payload because you all are on the same page. It's a team game. Ditch those solo queue habits. I had really bad habits as Zenyatta to where I wouldn't even tell my team. I'd say, I'm taking this tracer. I said, I got this. I wouldn't even tell them that I'm dueling in the back line. And I tried to take the fight so many times. I got good at dueling, but you lose half the time. When if I just would have had a Mercy with me, I would have taken the duel, and he probably would have killed the tracer, and I would have lived. But I had this mentality to where I, you know, just assumed my team was not gonna do what I needed them to do. They weren't gonna accomplish what needed to be done in that moment. But that took away from my role so many times. I was then out of position because I'm turned around now, looking at a tracer. Now I've got my Discord on tracer. No one's attacking her but me, so maybe shots land, right? Or a Genji or Doomfist, whatever it is. But call it out, you know, let your team know. Yeah, sometimes they're gonna help you, sometimes they're not, but calling the shot, feeding that information to your front line. Your tanks cannot turn around. They're forehead to forehead with the other tanks. Telling them what's going on behind them is crucial. They need to know. They need to know. And it's nice when someone calls out, oh, Tracer, you know, first point, Volskaya, Tracer's on point. Not everyone needs to leave the choke though. So knowing what your position does, you know, Rhines don't always need to turn around, but having that info, knowing that now your team is not with you, stop advancing. You know, I'm not gonna push in as if I've got 5 people behind me anymore. Now I only have 2.
I like charging as Ryan. It's fun. And then
It's fun.
when I realize that half my team's dead, and then I charge, and then I die, and then it's sad, and it's not fun.
Right, and then they yell at you and say, why did you do that?
Why did you
Their tracer
charge?
was on point. right? So, and you had no idea. And anyway, you're swinging your big dumb hammer.
Because you don't need the kill feed all the time. Just so you know. We mentioned that.
Healers should pay attention to kill feeds. If you don't do that already, try to.
Healers need to have the kill feed on.
If you're the shot caller, you need to know who's dead, what ults went out. You know, kind of. It has a lot of information going on there. You'll be able to see parts of the fight that you didn't see. Shot calling, important. Try to do it, even if you hate people. I learned to.
At least have one person doing it. You need to have at least one person doing it. And if everyone has their mics muted, turn your mic on and do it. Be that person, or else you don't have the callouts that you need to win the game. Especially if the other team does have the callouts, and they're just gonna wipe you.
Especially if you're doing the group finder, and now there's more 6 stacks than ever, and there's more groups than ever. You're facing other people that may have their stuff together.
Like now, speaking of like the voice chat there, now you guys typically stick with open mic or push to talk there, and if it's push to talk, like what binding? Because sometimes I have issues where like I've got a Blue Yeti, but like sometimes like it won't even pick up my mic in the game, so I have to usually try to kind of friends and usually trying to get into Discord. Discord's awesome if you're grouped up with a team. If you can avoid in-game chat, do it. I do open mic.
I think if you're the main shot caller, if you're that primary
Open
shot caller, open mic.
Open
But
mic.
if you're not, mute yourself so you can hear them.
I
Because I usually play off tank or main tank, so I usually, if I'm calling something out, I just do push to talk, and then I'm focused and whatever.
as Zenyatta, I'm always switching the orbs pretty quickly. So having to think about pushing another key is just another action per minute that I have to keep track of, right? So I leave it on open mic for Zen. Primary shot caller probably should have it open. I don't know if you guys have heard like some of the pro teams, like during Overwatch League, they used to play what their team fight communication was like. And it was a lot of, and but in the fight, it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like go, Genji, Genji, and the shots are being called and they're communicating just in like one word. Each person's saying one word, and that's communicating so much about where the fight's going and where it should go and how the team is going to move. It's all about staying together, right? And all the trifecta is working together. Everyone's doing what they need to. If someone's not doing what they need to, it stops someone else from doing what they need to. The tank can't push forward if you're not blowing up that Rhine shield that you need to, or picks aren't happening from your Widow in the back. And so then the blame starts getting thrown around, and you should avoid that at all costs. At the end of the game, don't blame people because it's a team game. And if one person's failing, and if you don't win, odds are that it's like a pyramid that collapsed and everyone fell on top of each other. And then the blame just gets thrown around, and it doesn't help anything, and it's not constructive. At the end of the game, you should say, what could I do better?
And as far as like I said, what key binding you guys typically use?
Oh, sorry. I use my thumb.
Okay. So
I use mouse 4.
Yeah, I use mouse 4 or 5, but
Oh, I
I
use 5.
have my melee and my push
yeah,
to
my
talk.
melee on my mouse.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Tip for Zen players, use your scroll. Use your scroll. Forward is heal, backwards is Discord. Use your scroll because you can stay positioning on your left hand with your WASD and never have to take off a finger to go hit your W because he just moves his orbs around too much. So another thing for the shot caller, lowering that APM so that you can keep track of more.
You distracted me so badly, I
Yeah.
forgot what I was going to say. That was your fault. I'm blaming you. That's okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Yeah.
Do people in rank and platinum still stack certain heroes like double tortal on? I've seen that done, and I think it's really cheap.
So that stopped after season 1. They got rid of multi-characters in ranked. Thank goodness. 6 Maze on point to Volskaya.
I love May.
I love May. She's only getting buffed and she's coming back. Yes. But Anna's not.
I think she's got what's gonna stop Hammond. I think that's going to be a good defense to Hammond is May.
Hammond's interesting. There's a lot of interactions that he has.
You just walk.
Boops stop Hammond
What do you mean
from
wrecking
moving.
ball?
Huh?
What do you mean wrecking ball?
Wrecking ball, yeah.
Literally everybody calls him Hammond.
Yeah.
I have not heard anyone call
So-
him Wrecking Ball since
That's his
release.
stage name.
So, how are you going to escape gold? How are you going to escape plat and get to the hell that is diamond? You are going to have 5 people that you play, not 20. Try not to fill those characters that you don't play on the regular. And this season, pick 5 that weren't there last season because characters get buffed and get moved around the meta. Whoever thought double snipers was ever going to be legitimate? Remember when we used to rage when people would double sniper? So mad.
Unless they're really good.
Yeah, unless they proved their worth.
Hanzo's a lot more aggressive now.
Hanzo's awesome now.
Hanzo's amazing
top notch, top elite.
So for someone like me, because like I said, I was self-impressed, like Reinhardt and Vegeta main. I used to play Zarya, then I realized I'm just not very good at throwing down concussions at that. So like, what would you say like for that would be better for me to complement for me like that I should focus on trying to get better at?
So there are characters that have similar mechanics. They don't play the same per se, but their mechanics are very similar. Reaper is the closest DPS to a tank. Brigitte is the closest support to a tank.
Okay.
So if that's your playstyle, if you like playing that kind of tank positioning, Reaper's a really good DPS pick. Who else would be going?
I would flex around to the other main tanks and really work on them, like working on your pulls with the Risa, knowing how to pull her. Like you shoot above people so you get that extra vertical,
Okay.
and that gives them falling time for your team to focus them. It's working on little things like that. And you sound like a tank player, so I would just work around those characters like Reaper, Brigitte, and then anyone else who comes up. Even May. May is a really
May's kind of
fun
tanky.
tank.
I really like. People go, oh, we don't need another DPS, and I go, I'm off tank. I'm off
Yeah,
tank.
yeah,
It's
I'm off
okay.
tank. I'm off
It's
tank.
okay.
Trust me, and I'm on Hanamura,
Ho-
just trolling the
Right,
first choke the
right.
whole time.
Hollywood point A. Oof. Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts on the new hero that they just announced?
So he's still getting changed, and they're finalizing a lot of stuff after seeing how he's played in the tier 2 scene as it goes, pubs. I think that since he is the fastest character, and just the way his kit kind of flows, once you figure out that flow, he's actually a lot of fun, first off. But he can come in at just about any angle, and it's really up to the player how creative they can get in a fight, because his grappling hook that he swings from, you can stay on the ground, or you can go up into the air. So there's a lot you can do with him, and I think that if you are not playing him all the time, figuring out new ways to move and new angles and when to do what with a team, I think you're gonna not be very good at him.
If you don't know every angle on every map to play him,
He is purely geometry. Like Symmetra and Hanzo don't know nothing about geometry.
So, is he like the tank for Widowmaker mains?
I would say more.
Diva mains. Maybe Diva mains, but more.
Yeah, he's the new diva.
He's the new
Yeah.
Diva.
Yeah. There's really nothing to compare him to. He really is interesting. But what's cool about him is that his bread and butter isn't his ult. It's not Genji's cool ult blade that he gets to slice everyone with. It's not a high noon. His kit really is that grappling hook, and whether or not he can get the momentum. There's so many times that you can't get the momentum, or boops stop the momentum, or even reverse your momentum. Lucio's like the weakest boop. Brigette's is the strongest to stop him. It'll literally just immediately stop his momentum, like at a full charge swing. He'll just stop. McCree, this feels so weird, but ever since they changed McCree's flashbang, him doing it on Hammond just feels wrong. It just does not feel right. Hammond stops momentum immediately also. So Brigitte's got to hit a super hard skill shot while McCree can just throw out a little AoE and kind of just stop Hammond in his tracks. So I do think he's definitely counterable. He's not overpowered. What's overpowered is that no one knows how he moves yet. Huh? Oh, anyway, so he's going to offer a lot to the meta in the way that he's largely disruption, and he is an initiator tank, but not with an ultimate. It's with his core abilities. He has a lot of disruption. I'll say it again, disruption. He boops people all over the place. He knocks them up into the air. He has a huge shield. He denies area. Super cool, super fun. Gonna bring a lot to the meta.
I think we, yeah.
I actually have two questions.
Yeah.
First one was, if you're playing a support like Mercy or someone, and people are being toxic towards you, but they're overextending and getting you in fights, what do you say to them?
You can't heal stupid. This is my biggest thing. You cannot heal through someone just running past your Rhine in a just straight line, you know, torch in the air, Helm's Deep style. You can't stop it. They're gonna get shot. They're gonna die. You can't heal through.
And don't respond back with Venom because it's only going to make it worse. But you can also go into your settings and hit this weird little thing and mute them. You can just mute that one person. You don't have to hear them for the rest of the game, and you are in team chat the whole time.
Just a shrug emoji.
Yeah.
I mean, there is something that I will, what I personally do, if they're raging at me as Mercy, if you can't beat them, join them. Switch over to Moira. Take all their gold medals.
Moira's a throw, don't you dare. Did she get
I've been
nerfed
there.
with shield?
Huh?
Did that?
Yeah, Moira did get nerfed. Her heals don't go through shields. Pretty sad days.
And then my second question is, do you have any tips for playing Lucio?
Okay, so I do just want to say back on the Mercy thing. If someone is obviously not getting the value out of their character, and they're just blatantly not even trying, don't pocket them, don't worry about them. Look at whoever's making plays, whoever is going to be your best bet for winning the game. Maybe you do need to swap to Moira to enable the tanks to stay in, because your McCree is just derpy.
Sometimes you do need to swap, but a lot of the time you really don't have to. And if their toxicity is, there's two different kinds. There's the I'm trying really hard and the I'm throwing, but I'm not going to tell you I'm throwing.
Right. I say if you can't get them to get more value out of their character, see how you can get the most out of yours. Really.
You'll know who's doing the
Well,
best. You'll know who's the best DPS on your team.
Right. And just stop depending on them. Now, what was your question about Lucio?
It's like, do you have any tips for how to play better? Because I think I kind of know what I'm doing when I play Lucio, but there are times when he's really bad. I don't think I'm playing right.
If you're on the ground, you're
Yeah, I was gonna say
wrong.
the floor's lava.
The floor is lava.
The floor's lava. So that's Lucio. Really, Lucio's in a weird place right now.
Niche.
He's really, really niche, and
Like, I want
Don't tell me how to say my English.
I want to make sure I'm healing everybody, but I also want to jump around and like wall glide everywhere so I can't get hit, right?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that you should really kind of think of him as fulfilling the same needs as a Zenyatta, except he has a speed boost instead of maybe a damage amp, right? So Zenyatta can't heal everyone with one orb, right? He can flip it around, but it's only ever healing one person. You don't have to look at them, so if you can kind of stick with someone else who's flanky and ganky, like Lucio can be, you can enable by speed boosting. That's a good way to play him. You probably should be moving your fast, slow tanks like Ryan and Zarya and Hog and Orisa, if that's your team comp. But really, you should probably only be playing him on either boof maps like Ilios and like the Murder Pit and
My favorite thing with the Murder Pit is like you just on the inside of it and you just wall grind it.
right.
I think only one.
Where you can just get so much value out of him by getting those easy one shots. That's also another good reason to play Orisa Hog. But he just can't get that much value on maps where you're just like running down a pipe. Because like even if you speed boost your team running down a pipe, like on a payload map, you're just running down a you're probably catching so much
I will
damage.
disagree with that. There are very specific times you can use Lucio, again with the Moira and the triple tank. And
That's
one
the time.
map that I've been very successful with is the first point on Volskaya. You can speed boost and get everyone right past that choke and right on point and just fight straight on point.
You can get people through chokes with him. That's really nice about him. I would maybe be looking for Symmetra to do that now, because she's going to have some interesting things. Yeah, but on King of the Hill maps, Lucio is awesome because it's first person to the point, gets to set up first. So you guys can make them come take the point from you instead of it being a squabble, and you know it's a coin toss sometimes where who knows who's going to get it. But if you're there set up and like everyone's in position, way more likely to get the point from
Like
the start.
getting a Risa right in there and you're
Right,
like, ha ha ha.
right. And if they don't have the Lucio, they're at a disadvantage because you beat them there.
Okay, sweet.
Any last questions? One last question. We're wrapping up. In the back.
This is more of a cosmetic question. How do you feel if Blizzard were more open-minded with skin design, like in Sombra with like Jill Valentine, Resident Evil, with Reinhardt, and Galliard from
So you're saying like the League of Legends style where it's just like crazy wonky, it could be anything, anytime? I would like it, but if they started changing particle effects of characters, then things aren't identifiable in combat. I think that the way the character targeting works with the auras.
I disagree 100%. It takes away from the lore and the core story that was put there with the original characters' outfits, and I think sometimes what Blizzard has already set up with new costume has gone a little bit too far, in my opinion.
But for instance, if the May Beekeeper skin, which I was like super excited when I saw the teaser for it a year ago, I said, oh cool, she's gonna have a honeycomb wall. Oh cool, when she throws her ult, it's not gonna be a blizzard, she's gonna throw a beehive and it's gonna be a bee swarm, right? And instead of people being frozen, they're just gonna like panic, as they get swarmed by bees and they're gonna hold still. That would be awesome, but like, if you have a May who isn't in that skin and they have that skin, it's not identifiable in combat. You need to know what those projectiles are that are flying through the air. They're very key things that you just are almost reflex trained. Anyway.
I think we covered everything.
So if you guys have any questions, you can talk to us after the panel. We also have a Discord that everyone talks about this stuff. They get help. They can ask Grandmasters that we have in there. We have a top 500 tank, DPS, and Grandmaster support in there that can also help you with questions. That's all.
Boop troop.
Yeah. Bye. I love you. No applause, just for a moment.
Just leave boxes, please.
Let's put a smile on that face.